You know that sound. You've been sitting on the couch watching television for maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and when you finally stand up, your knees let out this crackle that sounds like somebody stepping on a bag of dry pasta. And maybe your spouse looks over, or your grandkid laughs, and you say something like, "Don't get old," and everybody chuckles. But later that night, when you're lying in bed, you're not laughing anymore. You're thinking about it. You're wondering if that sound means you're one bad step away from a knee replacement. You're wondering if the cartilage is just gone now, if this is what the rest of your life sounds like. And I need to tell you something right now before we go any further. That cracking sound, in most cases, is not what you think it is. It's not bone grinding on bone. It's not your cartilage crumbling apart. What you're hearing is a message. Your joint is trying to tell you something, and almost nobody is listening to the right part of the conversation. My name is Dr. William, and I've spent years researching the connection between what we eat, how our joints function, and why certain communities throughout history had people working the land well into their 80s with knees that never gave out. Today, I'm going to walk you through what's actually happening inside your knee when it makes that sound, why the standard advice of just take some ibuprofen and lose weight is missing about 90% of the picture, and then I'm going to show you 9 foods and remedies, most of them dirt cheap, that Appalachian families, Depression-era grandmothers, and old farming communities used for generations before anyone had a word for glucosamine. Some of these you already have in your kitchen. One of them you've probably been throwing away every single week. Before we get into it, I need a favor. If you're over 60 and your knees talk to you every time you stand up, I want you to type your age in the comments right now and tell me which knee is worse, the left or the right. I read every single comment, and you'd be surprised how much we can learn from each other in that comment section. And if you haven't subscribed yet, tap that button now because every week I bring you research like this that your doctor simply doesn't have time to explain in a 12-minute appointment. So let's talk about what's actually happening inside that knee. Your knee joint is not just two bones stacked on top of each other. It's an entire ecosystem. You've got cartilage, which is that smooth, rubbery cushion that lets the bones glide without friction. You've got synovial fluid, which is this thick, viscous liquid that works like motor oil inside the joint capsule. You've got tendons and ligaments holding everything in alignment, and you've got a membrane called the synovial membrane that produces that fluid. Now here's what most people don't understand. When your knee cracks, what's usually happening is that gas bubbles, mostly carbon dioxide and nitrogen, are forming and collapsing inside that synovial fluid. It's called cavitation. Think of it like popping bubble wrap. The sound is dramatic, but the event itself is usually harmless. The real problem, the one nobody talks about at your annual physical, is not the sound. The real problem is what's happening to the quality of that synovial fluid and the integrity of that cartilage over time. And that comes down to 3 things: chronic low-grade inflammation, the slow loss of collagen production that starts accelerating after 60, and a mineral and nutrient deficiency pattern that is shockingly common in people who eat a standard modern diet. Your body knows how to rebuild cartilage. It knows how to produce thick, healthy synovial fluid. It knows how to calm inflammation. But it can't do any of that if you're not giving it the raw materials. And that's exactly what those old Appalachian families understood without ever reading a medical journal. Now let me say this clearly. If your knee is swollen, hot to the touch, or if you've had a sudden injury, you need to see your doctor. What I'm sharing today is not a substitute for medical evaluation. But if you're dealing with that gradual stiffness, those morning creaks, that feeling like your knees aged 10 years in the last 2, then what I'm about to show you could genuinely change the way your joints feel within weeks. Not because it's magic, but because you're finally giving your body what it's been asking for. The first food is bone broth, and I don't mean the stuff in the carton at the grocery store. I mean real bone broth, the kind your great-grandmother made. If you grew up in Appalachia or anywhere in rural America before the 1960s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. After a chicken dinner, nobody threw the carcass away. That was the beginning of the next meal. The bones went into a big pot with water, a splash of vinegar, maybe some onion ends and celery tops that had been saved in a bag in the freezer, and the whole thing simmered on the back of the wood stove for a day, sometimes 2 days. When it was done, you had this golden, gelatinous liquid that jiggled when it cooled. That jiggle is everything. That jiggle means the collagen extracted properly. It means you've got gelatin, which is cooked collagen, dissolved into that broth along with glycine, proline, glucosamine, chondroitin, and hyaluronic acid. Every single one of those compounds is something your joints need to maintain cartilage and produce healthy synovial fluid. A study out of Penn State back in 2008 looked at athletes taking collagen hydrolysate, which is essentially what you get from well-made bone broth, and found significant improvement in joint pain. The key is the simmer time. If you're using a stovetop, you need a minimum of 12 hours for chicken bones, 24 for beef. If you're using a pressure cooker, you can cut that in half. Add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to the water before you start. That acid helps pull the minerals out of the bone matrix. Drink 1 cup a day, warm, ideally in the morning. Your grandmother didn't know the word chondroitin, but she knew that broth made her hands work better in the winter. She was right. The second one is going to surprise you, and it's something most people pour straight down the drain. I'm talking about the liquid inside a can of sardines or a can of mackerel. That oily, fishy liquid that most people think is waste. In the fishing villages along the Atlantic coast and in old Appalachian communities where canned fish was a pantry staple because fresh fish was a luxury, people drank that liquid or used it to soak cornbread. They didn't waste a drop. And here's why that matters for your knees. That liquid is concentrated with omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, which are the 2 most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds your body can absorb. Chronic joint pain after 60 is almost always driven in part by systemic inflammation. Your body is running a slow, quiet, inflammatory response, and it's eating away at your cartilage like rust on a pipe. EPA and DHA interrupt that cycle at the cellular level. They actually compete with omega-6 fatty acids for the same enzymatic pathways, and when they win, your body produces fewer inflammatory prostaglandins. Research published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition has consistently shown that omega-3 supplementation reduces joint stiffness and pain in osteoarthritis patients. But here's the thing. A supplement capsule gives you maybe 300 milligrams of EPA and DHA combined. That sardine liquid, plus eating the sardines themselves, bones and all, gives you close to 1,500 milligrams. And those tiny soft bones in sardines are pure calcium and phosphorus, which your skeletal system is starving for. Eat 1 can of sardines 3 to 4 times a week. Eat the bones. Don't drain the liquid, pour it over rice, or use it in a sauce. Your joints will know the difference within a month. The third food is one I've become almost obsessed with in the last few years, and it's turmeric root, not the powder, the actual root. Now, you've heard about turmeric. Everyone has, but most people are using it wrong, and that's why they don't feel a difference. In the mountains of Appalachia, there wasn't turmeric, but there were other roots and barks that people used for joint swelling, things like willow bark and sassafras. The principle is the same. The medicine is in the root, and preparation matters. Turmeric contains curcumin, which is one of the most studied anti-inflammatory compounds in the world. There are over 12,000 peer-reviewed papers on curcumin. It inhibits NF-κB, which is a molecule that travels into the nuclei of your cells and turns on genes related to inflammation. The problem is that curcumin on its own has terrible bioavailability. Your body can barely absorb it. But here's what the research shows. If you combine curcumin with piperine, which is found in black pepper, absorption increases by up to 2,000%. That's not a typo. 2,000%. A study from St. John's Medical College demonstrated this clearly. So here's what I want you to do. Get fresh turmeric root from the grocery store or an Asian market. Grate about 1 inch of fresh root into a cup of warm water or warm milk. Add a generous pinch of black pepper. Add a small amount of fat, like a teaspoon of coconut oil or olive oil, because curcumin is fat-soluble. Drink this once a day, preferably with a meal. Within 2 to 3 weeks, most people notice a difference in morning stiffness, not because turmeric is magic, but because you've finally given it the cofactors it needs to actually get into your bloodstream. Now, before I get to number 4, I want you to pay special attention to number 7 on this list because it involves something that almost every person over 60 is deficient in, and it directly controls how your joints produce their lubricating fluid. Most doctors don't test for it. Stay with me. The fourth remedy is gelatin, plain, unflavored gelatin, the kind that comes in those little paper packets that your grandmother used to make Jell-O salads for church suppers. Now, gelatin and bone broth are related because gelatin is simply cooked collagen. But I'm listing it separately because not everyone has time to make bone broth from scratch every week, and gelatin is a practical, affordable daily supplement. 1 packet of Knox gelatin dissolved in warm water or juice every morning gives you roughly 6 grams of collagen protein. Your body breaks that down into amino acids, primarily glycine and proline, which are the specific building blocks your body uses to manufacture new cartilage and repair connective tissue. A 2000 study out of Ball State University tracked athletes using gelatin supplementation and found a marked reduction in joint pain compared to placebo. The method is simple. Dissolve 1 packet in a small glass of warm water in the morning. You can add a squeeze of lemon if the texture bothers you. Do this every day. It costs almost nothing. People in the rural South and Appalachia consumed gelatin regularly, not as a supplement, but because they ate the whole animal. They ate the skin, the feet, the knuckles, the parts we throw away now. Those parts are pure collagen. We stopped eating them and our joints started falling apart. That's not a coincidence. The 5th item is one that grows wild in practically every state east of the Mississippi, and people in the Appalachian Mountains have been using it for joint pain for over 200 years. I'm talking about stinging nettle. Now, if you've ever accidentally brushed against stinging nettle while walking through the woods, you know it. It feels like tiny needles and the skin welts up and burns. But that same plant, when dried and made into a tea, has remarkable anti-inflammatory properties. The leaves contain compounds that inhibit several inflammatory cytokines, including TNF-alpha and interleukin-6, which are the same markers that rheumatologists measure when they're assessing inflammatory joint conditions. In the mountains, old-timers would actually intentionally sting their arthritic joints with fresh nettle. They called it urtication. And while that sounds brutal, there's actually a small body of research, including a study published in the Journal of the Royal Society of Medicine, suggesting that the localized histamine response can temporarily relieve deep joint pain. But you don't need to sting yourself. Just make the tea. You can buy dried nettle leaf in bulk online or at any health food store. Steep 2 teaspoons in boiling water for 10 to 15 minutes, covered, so the volatile compounds don't escape with the steam. Drink 2 cups a day. It's mild, slightly grassy, a little earthy. Some people add honey. This is one of those remedies that people in the hollows of West Virginia and eastern Kentucky swore by, and the science is starting to explain why they were right. The 6th food is something you can find at any grocery store for less than $1, and it's one of the most underappreciated joint foods in existence. It's cabbage, plain green cabbage. Now, in Appalachian and German immigrant communities throughout Pennsylvania and the Midwest, cabbage was a survival food. It grew easily, it stored well in root cellars, and it could be fermented into sauerkraut that lasted all winter. But what those communities didn't know is that cabbage is loaded with vitamin C, which is absolutely essential for collagen synthesis. Without adequate vitamin C, your body literally cannot build new collagen. It's a required cofactor in the enzymatic process. Cabbage also contains glutamine, an amino acid that helps repair the gut lining, which matters for your joints because intestinal permeability, what some researchers call leaky gut, allows inflammatory molecules to enter the bloodstream and settle in joint tissue. And when you ferment cabbage into sauerkraut, you add another layer of benefit. The fermentation produces probiotics, specifically lactobacillus strains, that modulate the immune response and reduce systemic inflammation. A study from the University of Turku in Finland found that probiotic supplementation reduced markers of inflammation in elderly subjects. Here's my recommendation. Eat raw or lightly cooked cabbage several times a week, and eat 2 to 3 tablespoons of raw, unpasteurized sauerkraut daily. Not the canned kind from the regular grocery aisle. That's been heated and the probiotics are dead. Get the refrigerated kind, or better yet, make your own. It takes 5 minutes of active work, and then you wait a week. Your grandmother probably had a crock in the cellar. There's a reason for that. Now here's number 7, the one I told you to watch for, and this is the one that changes the game for most people. It's magnesium, specifically magnesium glycinate. If I could test every person over 60 who walked into my office, I'd test their magnesium levels first, and I'd bet money that at least 7 out of 10 would be deficient. The standard blood test your doctor orders measures serum magnesium, which only reflects about 1% of your total body magnesium. The rest is in your bones, your muscles, and your cells, so you can have a normal blood test and still be deeply deficient at the tissue level. Why does this matter for your knees? Because magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, and several of those are directly involved in cartilage maintenance and synovial fluid production. Magnesium also regulates calcium. Without enough magnesium, calcium doesn't go where it's supposed to. Instead of strengthening your bones, it deposits in your soft tissue, including your joint capsules. That's called chondrocalcinosis, and it's one of the causes of that painful, gritty feeling in the knee. Magnesium glycinate is the form I recommend because glycinate is bound to glycine, which itself is an amino acid critical for collagen production, so you're getting 2 benefits in one. Take 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate in the evening with food. Start at 200 and increase gradually. The most common side effect of too much magnesium is loose stools, so let your body tell you the right dose. Within 2 to 3 weeks, many people notice that their joints feel smoother, their muscles cramp less, and they sleep better. That last part isn't a coincidence either. Magnesium calms the nervous system, and when you sleep better, your body repairs tissue more efficiently overnight. If you're finding this helpful, and I think you are because you're still here, do me a favor and tap that like button right now. It tells the algorithm to show this video to other people who need it. And there are a lot of people over 60 with creaking knees who are being told that surgery is their only option when they haven't even tried feeding the joint what it needs. Share this with someone you love who's been complaining about their knees. You might change their year. The 8th item is apple cider vinegar, and I can already hear some of you saying, I knew he was going to say that. But hear me out, because the reason it helps your joints is not the reason most people think. Apple cider vinegar is not magic water. It's not going to cure anything by itself, but it does 2 specific things that matter for joint health. First, it contains acetic acid, which has been shown to improve mineral absorption, particularly calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Research from Arizona State University has demonstrated that acetic acid can improve the body's ability to extract minerals from food. If you're eating all these wonderful joint-supporting foods but your body isn't absorbing the minerals effectively, you're leaving benefit on the table. Second, apple cider vinegar with the mother, that cloudy, stringy stuff at the bottom, contains a matrix of beneficial bacteria and enzymes that support gut health. And as I mentioned with the cabbage, gut health and joint health are intimately connected through the inflammatory pathway. Old-timers in the mountains mixed a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar with warm water and a bit of honey and drank it every morning. They called it a tonic. They didn't know about mineral bioavailability or the gut-joint axis. They just knew their joints felt better when they did it. Here's the protocol. 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar in 8 ounces of warm water, first thing in the morning, 20 minutes before breakfast. If it's too acidic for your stomach, start with a teaspoon and work up. Always rinse your mouth with plain water after drinking it to protect your tooth enamel. Do this daily. It's pennies a day and it amplifies everything else on this list. The 9th and final item is one that most people have completely lost touch with, and it might be the most powerful of all. It's slow-cooked cartilage and connective tissue from the joints of animals. I'm talking about chicken feet, pig's feet, oxtail, beef knuckles, and neck bones. In every traditional culture that kept its elders mobile and pain-free well into old age, there was one common thread. They ate the parts of the animal that modern Americans throw away. In Appalachian households, a pot of pig's feet was not poor food, it was medicine. Chicken feet went into the soup pot. Oxtail simmered for hours until the meat fell off in shreds, and the liquid turned into a thick, sticky, golden broth that coated the back of the spoon. That stickiness is pure collagen, type 2 collagen specifically, which is the exact type that makes up your articular cartilage, the cartilage that lines the surface of your knee joint. A landmark study from Harvard Medical School, published in the journal Science, found that oral administration of type 2 collagen reduced joint inflammation and pain in rheumatoid arthritis patients. The theory is called oral tolerance. When you consume the same type of collagen that your immune system is attacking in your joints, it can actually retrain the immune response to stop the attack. That's not folk wisdom, that's immunology. Here's how I want you to use this. Find a good butcher, the kind of old-school butcher that still carries these cuts. Most Asian and Latin grocery stores have chicken feet and oxtail readily available and affordable. Put 2 pounds of oxtail or a bag of chicken feet in a slow cooker with enough water to cover, a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, some salt, and let it cook on low for 12 to 14 hours. When it's done, the liquid should be thick and gelatinous. Drink a cup of that broth daily and eat the soft, melted cartilage from around the bones. It sounds unusual if you didn't grow up with it, but once you taste it, you'll understand why your great-grandparents never wanted to give it up. 1 cup a day, your knees will start to remember what they're supposed to feel like. Now let me tell you about a woman named Dorothy. Dorothy is 73 years old, retired school teacher from Eastern Tennessee. She came to one of my community talks about 2 years ago, and she could barely make it up the 3 steps to the stage entrance. Both knees cracked and popped. Her right knee had been swelling on and off for a year, and her orthopedic surgeon had told her she was a candidate for bilateral knee replacement. Dorothy was terrified. She'd seen her older sister go through a knee replacement and the recovery was brutal, so she asked me, point blank, "Is there anything I can try before I let them cut me open?" I didn't promise her anything. I told her what I'm telling you today. I said, start with the bone broth, the magnesium, and the sardines. Get those 3 going for 2 weeks, and then add the turmeric drink and the apple cider vinegar. I told her to talk to her doctor about everything she was doing. 2 months later, Dorothy sent me a letter. Her morning stiffness had gone from about 45 minutes of hobbling around to about 10. The swelling in her right knee had gone down noticeably. She was walking her dog again, a full mile every morning. She hadn't canceled her surgical consultation, but she'd postponed it. Her surgeon was surprised at the improvement in her range of motion. 6 months later, Dorothy was doing 2 miles a day and had started a small garden in her backyard, something she hadn't done in 3 years because she couldn't kneel. She still has arthritis. She still has days where her knees are stiff. But she told me, and I'll never forget this, she said, "Dr. William, I got my mornings back." That's what we're after here. Not miracles. Mornings. Now I need to say something important, and I need you to listen carefully. If you are currently taking any prescription medication, especially blood thinners like warfarin, anti-inflammatory medications like prednisone, or any medication for an autoimmune condition, do not add these foods and supplements without talking to your doctor first. Turmeric, omega-3 fatty acids, and even large amounts of vitamin C can interact with certain medications. Magnesium can affect the absorption of some antibiotics and blood pressure medications. I'm not telling you these things to scare you. I'm telling you because I care about your safety. Your doctor needs to be your partner in this. Bring them this list. Show them what you want to try. A good doctor will work with you, and if your doctor dismisses you without even looking at the research, well, maybe it's time for a second opinion. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we talked about today. Every single one of these 9 foods and remedies is doing the same fundamental work from a different angle. They're reducing the chronic inflammation that eats away at your cartilage. They're providing the raw materials, the glycine, the proline, the type 2 collagen, the vitamin C, the magnesium that your body needs to actually rebuild and maintain joint tissue. And they're restoring the quality of your synovial fluid so that your knee moves the way it was designed to move, smooth, quiet, and painless. Your body hasn't forgotten how to do this. It just ran out of supplies. These foods are the supply line. Here's your plan for this week. I want you to do 5 things. First, tomorrow morning, start with the apple cider vinegar drink. 1 tablespoon warm water before breakfast. That's 2 minutes. Second, pick up a pack of unflavored gelatin and dissolve 1 packet in water or juice every morning. That's another 2 minutes. Third, buy a bottle of magnesium glycinate, 200 milligrams, and take 1 capsule with dinner. Fourth, this weekend, make 1 batch of bone broth or slow cook some oxtail. Make a big pot, freeze it in portions, and have 1 cup a day all week. Fifth, get 2 cans of sardines and eat one this week, bones and all, with the liquid. Don't overthink it. Put them on crackers. Eat them out of the can like a fisherman. Just eat them. You do these 5 things consistently for 3 weeks, and I want you to come back to this video and tell me what you notice. I'm not promising miracles. I'm promising that your joints will finally have what they've been asking for. Now, in my next video, I'm going to tackle something that I get more questions about than almost anything else, and it's directly connected to what we talked about today. I'm going to show you why your hip pain and your knee pain might actually be coming from the same hidden source, a muscle that most doctors never check and most physical therapists only spend about 30 seconds on. It's called the psoas, and when it locks up, it changes the way your entire lower body bears weight. Every step you take loads your knee wrong. I'm going to show you the simple 60-second test to find out if your psoas is the culprit, and 3 movements you can do on your living room floor to release it. You don't want to miss that one. Make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is turned on so you see it the moment it drops. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of those knees. They carried you this far. Now it's your turn to carry them.